Number 4.
I'll put Josh Allen an inch ahead because he's Josh Allen. I think Bradley Chubb, again, kind of a sneaky, smart signing, going to give you about 9, 10, 11 sacks. And DJ Moore, because the Colston Loveland and Luther Burden exploded last year at the end of the year for the Bears, people think, well, DJ Moore's numbers dropped. DJ Moore is still a number one, never misses starts, tough player. So Chubb and DJ Moore, to me, are some really nice B-plus added elements. Buffalo at 4.
Yeah, this is such an interesting conversation for many different reasons. When you look around the league and we see some of the changes that have been made, this list was made before the Waddle trade and whatnot. It's interesting with the Buffalo Bills because we're looking at teams right now, and this is the way how it happens every year, but we're looking at teams that are all different variations of have we taken a gigantic step forward? Have we taken a step back? Have we stayed the same, but now other teams have caught up or even passed us, right? Like you have all these different variations. Like the Rams to me have taken a legitimate step forward, right? You could say I think the Seahawks have essentially kind of stayed the same relatively speaking, which therefore if other teams have taken a step forward, they've taken a step back without taking a step back, right? And again, it's just not saying that they took a step back, but and it doesn't mean that now if you take a step back, you can't win or that you're still not the best team. It's just you haven't taken concrete steps to take this step forward. And the Buffalo Bills are kind of in this middle-of-the-road hybrid way where it's just like we've made coaching changes, concrete coaching changes, and then from a roster standpoint, we made legitimate strategic moves, albeit not moves that are like we just traded a first-round pick for Jalen Waddle, we just went out and signed for $100 million Hendrickson or Max Crosby, or any of those types of moves. Moves and the types of moves that the Buffalo Bills have made are honestly some of the hardest to figure out. I'm supportive of all of them so far. I've sung the praises of both of the main moves that really all the moves that the Buffalo Bills have made since the off-season. And to me, when you're looking at a team like the Buffalo Bills, you kind of have to figure out why have you been successful and why have you come up short, right? Because they are the most textbook stereotypical example of a team where you're like, what do we need to do to get over the hump? Right? The question is also and is actually pretty flawed in a lot of ways because it depends on what the league around you looks like in any given moment. What the Bills potentially needed to do to get over the hump from 21 to 22 or 22 to 23 will be fundamentally different than what they need to do from 25 to 26. And that's what's actually really, really interesting because why they may be lost in 2025, this past year is not necessarily the same as to why they lost a couple seasons ago in 23. And so when you're looking around the league and you're looking at, let's just stick with the AFC right now, the Chargers, the Broncos, the Patriots, the Ravens, if I didn't say them, the Chiefs, right? Like the usual suspects, and then let's add in some of the other random teams, the Jags, and then whatnot. And that's what becomes super interesting because then you're just like, okay, well, how have the Bills come up short in some of these other instances? And that's where you have to look beyond sometimes of the idea of they just need again this big player, a Max Crosby, a Derrick Henry, a Saquon Barkley, all of those things obviously are great. When you can add those pieces, it becomes a no-brainer. But it doesn't mean that the only way that you move forward is by adding those pieces. But the risk is with some of the moves that the Bills have made. The value in the moves that the Bills made are giving yourself the ability to really ensure that you're not taking a step backwards, that even if you just take a step forward that you've already been so close that if everyone else around you maybe the Jags took a step back, maybe again the Texans take a step back, the Chiefs it's not even a matter of them taking a step back. They have to take multiple steps forward to kind of get back up in, within range. Same thing with the Ravens, etc. Does that already put the Bills at that advantage? Are the Patriots going to be able to repeat what they did last season? And also, have they taken they've lost Diggs now, etc., etc. And now the Broncos, the biggest problem is, or at least for the Bills is that the Broncos did make a genuine step forward from my viewpoint, especially with adding Watt. And then so it's just like at that point you're really kind of banking on the neutralization of, well, Josh Allen is just simply a better quarterback than Bo Nix, right? And that's the hope. Although Bo Nix obviously played great in the playoffs against the Buffalo Bills, that obviously cannot be denied. And then you look at another team like the Chargers, it's like their roster has not, they'll be healthier, their O-line, so therefore their roster itself should be better than it was last year, and they added a coach who I think is awesome. Is that enough now for them to either keep pace with the Buffalo Bills or take an actual concrete step forward? It does make it a little bit messy, but this is actually where the Kansas City Chiefs have lived for the outside of last year, really, I guess from 22, 23 and 24, where it's like their level, their let's just say competency, their ability to play at a high level was more or less just maintained, and that was the only thing that was important to them. It was like, we just need to maintain what we're at and everyone else is kind of going to ebb and flow, and as long as we maintain we'll be good. Now the fundamental difference is that their ability to maintain was enough to get over the hump in a way that the Bills simply wasn't. And so if some of this sounds confusing or kind of like, what are you talking about right now? It's an important discussion to try to figure out legitimately how good are you getting in relation to everyone else, because that's what matters more than anything. You can legitimately be a team that doesn't need to do anything. And it's not because you're this unbelievable team, but it's just like all these other teams are kind of taking a step back. So, as long as you have continuity and consistency, that's way more important than elevating your ceiling, for instance. I mean, in a lot of ways, that's how the Philadelphia Eagles were able to win the division again last year, despite their SE ceiling being significantly lower because the Dallas Cowboys did not take a net positive step forward, especially because of their defense. They did offensively, not defensively. So together, not really a step forward. The Giants stepped back and they were already bad to begin with. I guess maybe technically they took a step forward. You know, who really cares? The Commanders stepped back. The Eagles were just like, as long as we can just kind of stay consistent, we're going to win this division. And they did. Now, obviously, you have grander aspirations than just trying to win the division, but you still have to look in relation to all of that. And it's just, I think we're at such a tricky time right now. Because you look at certain moves and some moves that are still lingering, and you kind of start to question what other moves are there for the Buffalo Bills, because you look at a team like the Los Angeles Rams and it's like, to me, they were the clearest team that made like very concrete yes or no moves that were like, this gets us better. This gives us a legitimate step forward, and they were already a team that if they just maintained their level of competency, they were already going to be a bona fide top team, if not the top team, because their biggest competition was the Seattle Seahawks. And at a minimum, the Seahawks stay the same, let alone most likely take even just a fraction of a step backwards, which is already then a net positive for the Rams. Combine that with them also taking steps forward, now it's even more of a net positive. So, it's just trying to figure that out where the Buffalo Bills are, it matters. It does genuinely matter, because you get a frame of reference right now of what else do we need to do now. What other moves do we need to do? And this kind of coincides with what Nick was saying, although I obviously wholeheartedly disagreed with him. Surprise, surprise. And me disagreeing with one of his Buffalo Bills stakes, is that he was saying that they're acting from desperation. That they're acting, they're trying to focus too much right now rather on a 5, 6, 7-year timeline. And honestly, a move that the Denver Broncos made starts to make me feel like maybe the Buffalo Bills need to do even more, because you would really be banking on the Braun Boyks really that he's actually not that good of a quarterback. Like, yeah, he has his moments, right? He's closer to, on a spectrum of, and I'm not going to go too far, but on a spectrum of Josh Allen and Baker Mayfield, he's closer to Baker Mayfield than Josh Allen. One is the truth, one is, that was a pretty good game. One is clearly an all-time great. One is like, no, yes, you can absolutely win games with him and go pretty far as well. You can win some playoff games. Etc., but one is Josh Allen, one is not. And so, you're banking on Bo Nix at that point to being very far from Josh Allen, because if he is on that spectrum and closer to Josh Allen than you would want him to be, well, then that team will be taking massive steps forward and they already beat you in the playoffs. You know, that's why they're the ultimate barometer team right now for the Buffalo Bills, not the Ravens, not the Chiefs, because you simply just played them last season and lost. Now again, we could make the argument that was clearly not the Buffalo Bills' best game, etc., etc. I've obviously unpacked that game plenty and defended Josh and, everyone else involved. But it is still, I still think these are thought-provoking things to think about right now, especially when you kind of have the time to think about them because there's only so much going on. So, and I guess, as I'm making this video, it's right on the end of the Broncos trade. That trade excited me massively. If I'm looking at it through the Broncos lens, I'm like, that was awesome. You absolutely stuck the landing. And as much as I love what the Buffalo Bills have done, and I really am genuinely excited for what they've done and do believe their steps forward, are those moves concrete moves that make you feel like if it was proportionally the same step forward that 23 would now be different, that 24 would now be different, 25 would now be different. That's the question mark. I think some of these moves, if I was making those comps, they definitely feel like a step forward. Whereas, if you made a move similar to what say the Broncos did, that's like 2 steps forward. Now, it's like now I feel like it's genuinely yours to lose. So, I hope this made sense because it's definitely, I'm definitely digging into the weeds. Definitely digging into the weeds. It's just I still feel that this team has such potential because I do have such an insane belief in Josh Allen and I'm incredibly optimistic of what Joe Brady does as the head coach now because he will have more power. Obviously, not even just by virtue of being the head coach, but just in terms of everything, just in terms of how he runs the team, what he demands out of his side of the ball, even like he will be able to do more offensively just as the head coach than with a coordinator, even though he obviously would have had full control over that offense. But it's just going to be different. Even his relationship with Josh Allen is going to change for the better, mind you, for the better. So, because he's the head coach, he's not the coordinator. Like he is the true head coach, like that dynamic will change, and like I said, I believe for the better. But when I look at a team like the Buffalo Bills, it's like, let's say we take Colin's top 10 as the absolute truth, let's just say it's the absolute truth, it's like what else can they do to go from 4 to 1, right? And I would believe that Colin right now, he's obviously on vacation after the trade with the Broncos. My guess is he would move the Broncos up. That would be my guess. My guess is that he would move them up to 3, maybe even 2. I think he would definitely move them ahead of the Buffalo Bills. And again, I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm not here to try to figure out the exact order, but it's just like if this is true, what can the Bills do to get to 1? Because I don't think the Bills are number 1 right now. I am not prepared to put an exact order on anything, but I don't think the Bills are number 1. Doesn't mean that they're not a top team. Doesn't mean that they can't win the Super Bowl. Doesn't mean that I won't have, all the belief in them. But it's just like that's why I do really respect what the Rams have done, because it's just like I have, and I made a whole video about it, just like my confidence for the Rams is through the roof. And for someone who believes in Josh Allen, I'm like, I want to be able to have that confidence in the franchise. I want to have that level of confidence in the team. And a lot of that comes down to, like, I know Sean McVay is going to show up. I know Blake Horm is going to show up. I know Karen Williams is gonna show up. I know Puka Nacua is gonna show up. I know Devin. It's like I have no worries about that. I have no doubt about that. Now, that defense, too. I got no doubt that defense is going to rise to the occasion. I believe that the Bills can rise to that occasion, but I can't say that there's no doubt. I can't say that there's no doubt, especially because I've been burnt by the Bills. Straight up. Straight up. So, I'm curious now that some of these other prominent moves have continued to unfold. The with Hendrickson with the Ravens, obviously Wadd, like I said, with the Broncos. I'm trying to think of what else recently has happened, since last week. I guess I think those are probably a couple of the main ones. The Eagles have made a couple moves obviously, signing Hollywood Brown and, couple defensive players, and Dallas Goedert. Yeah. I'm curious, DOS, Patriots, where are you landing with all of this right now? You know, try to think about what I was trying to emphasize earlier is a lot of times I see a lot of fans when they're looking at what their team is doing in free agency on one side, they're comparing it to what other teams are doing, but they're also hyper-focused on is their team getting better. And I guess what I'm trying to emphasize is look at the Buffalo Bills in relation to everyone else. And also recognize that everyone was already at different levels. They were already at different footing. Which is why in one of my other videos I talked about how some teams, you got to get to a 10 to be able to win a Super Bowl. Some teams are at a 7. Some teams are at a 9. Some teams are at a 4. Some teams are at a 4. And they made a huge move like getting Max Crosby and A.J. Brown. It's like, oh my god, they done it. It's like, yeah, but they went from 4 to 8. You're already at 8. Therefore, you don't need that Max Crosby and A.J. Brown move. So, it's just like try to look at the Buffalo Bills in relation to all the other teams, especially the AFC. And it's like, do you feel that they have elevated beyond or with everyone else? It's like, are we in store for a similar season of that we've been in for these last few years where it's like Buffalo Bills are great. Josh Allen is amazing in any given moment. They absolutely can light the league on fire and Josh Allen's capable of doing anything, but that margin of error is still incredibly narrow in the playoffs, which is what has done them in. Have you widened that margin of error compared to some of these other teams? Let me know your thoughts. I read every single comment. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here and absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all generally feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up as it really does help visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next.